How's it going, everybody? It is Vishu here. Today's video I'll be talking about the top 3 WordPress backup plugins. If you're interested in learning more, then stay tuned. Alright, so the first plugin I have here is All-in-One WordPress Migration. I just shot a tutorial on how to migrate a WordPress website using this, so that is in the description below. I'm going to be talking about the ups and downs of this. I have used all of these for backing up and restoring my websites and migrating hosts and vice versa for my clients and myself. Uh, the benefit of all-in-one WordPress migration is it's fairly easy to operate. All you have to do is go to export sites, and you hit export to and file, and as soon as you do that, when you install a fresh new WordPress, you install all-in-one WordPress migration again, and then you just drag the file over here to drag and upload, or you choose import from file, and you'll be able to restore your website like that. So the advantage of this is really simplicity, and I haven't had much failure with it. It's been very smooth and very swift as well. The downside of it is that if you want to more features in backing up, you're gonna have to pay. So if you want to export to, let's say, Google Drive or Dropbox or OneDrive and vice versa, then you're gonna have to pay $99 for the Pro. And if you want to upload, so for instance, if your host doesn't support your website backup file size to be uploaded directly from the browser, you cannot use this plugin. In other words, you see how it says here maximum upload size 512 megabytes? Well, if let's say your host limited the WordPress maximum upload file size to 128 megabytes and your backup was 150 megabytes, and you backed it up and you migrated to the new host and you were about to start using the plugin to restore your website, but then you reach the stage where you're going to import the site and the maximum upload size is 128 and yours is 150, well, you can't do much unless your host allows you to increase that maximum upload file size, which, for instance, I've used some hosts that do not. I don't want to give any names specifically. One of them is SiteGround. I will mention them because I reached out to them and said, I have a website backup that I want to restore, but it's not. So what I ended up doing was I ended up restoring it from Updraft Plus, which is my next, and in my opinion, a lot better WordPress backup plugin. Now it runs into issues and errors here and there, but it has scheduled backups to literally any of your cloud storages, and it's completely free to do that. You can have as many backups as you want, as far as I'm aware. Weekly, daily, you get to pick how many you want to keep and whatnot, and you'll be able to keep those backups. So you can see when you're restoring the backups, it's a little bit more challenging, but it's doable. I mean, if you're using WordPress to make a website, chances are that you know a little bit about your way around these things, and hence it shouldn't be that hard if you follow instructions. And I will have a video coming up on Updraft Plus, so if you want to check that out, it'll be in the link in the description probably by the time you're watching this. So you can see it. You can have manual backup by hitting backup now, and then you get to upload your backed up file to any of these remote storage places. So I usually do mine in Google Drive, or if you have Updraft Plus Vault, that's another option obviously that they provide. It goes like this. You want to restore the backup, everything, and you can hit whatever you want to restore, and then you can just restore it like that. I have run into some issues when restoring certain backups. Some of the files had some errors at some point. I don't recall exactly what it was, but I think it didn't restore the whole thing, but the website seemed fine, so I didn't notice anything lacking, and I thought, something is probably lacking, but I'm not exactly sure. So it did have that at one point. I'm not entirely sure what it was lacking. I don't remember. It was some time ago, and hence that's my experience with Updraft Plus. It's a pretty good, solid plugin. The only downside is you can't choose where the backups are, which directory the backups are saved, what directory it's called, and vice versa. And I believe every cloud storage it might be limited to one website, but I'm not certain on that either. I know you're going to be like, whoa, what's the point of making this? Well, at least I've tried all of them, and here I'm trying to give you some information on them. And this video is for beginners. So the next plugin is Duplicator. Migrations and backups made easy. Well, I do have to say Duplicator is the hardest of these three, because you actually have to deal with some type of database, I believe. But basically, when you back up, you gotta download the installer and the archive, and when you do, you set up a new. I believe you set up a new host, and you go to your Duplicator old, and it has a /installer.php in a specified URL that they'll give you, and you go to that URL, and then you're capable of doing this installation. How is this possible? Well, basically, your installer.php and your package, you'll upload those to your website via FTP. So this is definitely viable. What I would recommend is definitely using Duplicator to have a backup of your website before you actually migrate it. Even if you're going to use Updraft Plus or All-in-One migration, in case these two fail, this is definitely something that you can do. Like, for instance, if All-in-One migration, your website file size is too large, it doesn't let you import, you can always rely on Duplicator because it doesn't have an issue like that. Although, have I used this? How many times have I used it? I think I've used it for 2 websites, and both of them were working fine when I migrated. Although the procedure I remember was a lot less user-friendly than these. If you're looking for something that's for more beginners, then I would definitely recommend Updraft Plus and All-in-One migration WordPress. All-in-One WordPress migration, whatever. Something that the Duplicator plugin that ran into an issue at one point, I think, with one of my websites. Outside the 2, one time I tried to use it, I believe. It was that, yes, the files were too large, and it tried to restore them, but it wasn't able to restore them. Now, is that to blame on what host I was using back then, or is that to blame on Duplicator? Not entirely certain, but I haven't had an issue like that with any of the other ones. Updraft Plus, no, not Updraft. Yes, Updraft Plus would sometimes load and then stop and get stuck at a certain percentage. That I should mention too, in some of my website restorations that I've done for certain clients. And yeah, I've had to, like, honestly, if you're gonna back up a website, my recommendation is, even if you're not going to back up a website for migration, you should always have Updraft Plus at least backing up, weekly, and retain 2 backups per week, let's say. And make sure the database and the files are the same so that you can restore them and you can have a good time with not having to deal with synchronization in case you run into an issue with synchronization, which you normally won't, but you want to keep your database as up to date as your files typically. It's just a good practice. But having this, I usually have Updraft Plus on all of my websites that I make, both for myself and my clients. Obviously not ones where I just set them up to make a YouTube video or something of that sort, but the ups of having Updraft Plus is you don't have to worry about it. It's just passively, occasionally it'll use some of your server resources in order to do a backup, but I believe it's worth that. A lot of times these shared hosting services will say we offer free daily backups and stuff like that. Well, you can actually do that with Updraft Plus. So if you're stuck between two hosts and one of them offers backups and the other one doesn't, you definitely can say, well, I have Updraft Plus on my side either way, so I'll be good. So yes, have this as the core. Always backing up your website no matter what. You don't know what's going to happen, and if something happens to your website, the files are not stored on your website or your website's host. They're stored on your cloud account. So long as that's safe, which most times it is, because if you have Microsoft OneDrive, Google Drive, Amazon servers, or Dropbox, whatever, it's a lot safer than having it on your web host, or so I would argue. All-in-one WordPress migration. This is probably what I would recommend for the most smooth WordPress migration. If you're actually looking toward migrating your website from one web host to another or something of that sort, then yeah, this is your go-to. If this fails, you always have Duplicator, which I highly recommend. If you're migrating, first install Duplicator, add a new package, install the installer and the archive, and make sure to keep them in one folder called your website. So like if your website is called mywebsite.com, create a folder called mywebsite.com and put the installer and archive in this, because I believe the installer doesn't actually have a unique name. All of them are just called installer.php. I'm not entirely certain if they vary or not, because when I would back up a lot of websites, I paid attention to what installer was for which one, and the archives too. You gotta make sure that their name is indicative of the website so that it doesn't get mixed up if you have multiple websites. That's what I would recommend. And if you have other files and your website backup files are not noticeably different from your other files, you don't want to get them mixed up. So I would say, yourwebsite.com/duplicator or something of that sort. You make a folder, throw them in there, and keep them there until your website is back up and running once you're done the migration process. If, for instance, all-in-one WordPress migration fails, your next go-to is Duplicator. If this fails, you always have Updraft Plus. Or the other way around. I mean, if you don't want to go through the hassle of Duplicator, all-in-one WordPress migration fails, you have Updraft Plus. But if Updraft Plus fails, you have Duplicator. The takeaway of this video is more backups is the better way to go. But once you're done, though, migration, I should mention, delete all your backup plugins with the exception of Updraft Plus. Why? Because you're going to want that to back up your websites automatically. The worst case scenario is that you're incapable of retrieving your full backup, but you're able to take away the files from it. I don't think that's possible with all-in-one WordPress migration because they have a unique backup package, and even their unique backup file extension, and so does Duplicator. I would definitely highly recommend Updraft Plus, which also does archive your website in a little zipped thing, but I would rely on it a lot more for extracting that information than the other two plugins. If you found this video helpful, then it helps me if you drop a like, or maybe it doesn't, God knows. If you have any comments, concerns, questions, do leave that in the comments section below. If you want more videos like this, make sure to subscribe, and let's ditch webs.com Weebly website builders together. Have a great day, boys.